If you had the power to destroy the man who once controlled every part of your life, would you use it, knowing it could also destroy part of yourself? The ballroom glittered with gold and arrogance. Crystal chandeliers cast light over polished marble floors, champagne glasses clinked, and the air smelled of money and Chanel No. 5. But for Emma Weston, the sound of laughter felt like daggers in her chest. She stood near the far wall, one hand resting protectively over her swollen belly, trying to make herself invisible. 6 months pregnant, she was surrounded by New York's richest and most ruthless. Every glance carried pity, or the cruel satisfaction of gossip coming to life. Her silk dress, borrowed from a friend, fit too tight and her shoes pinched, but those discomforts were nothing compared to the fire of humiliation burning in her. And there he was, Andrew Weston, her soon-to-be ex-husband. The man she'd once thought was her forever. Tonight, he looked like the perfect Wall Street golden boy. Dark hair perfectly styled, tuxedo pressed to perfection, glass of champagne in one hand and his new girlfriend on the other arm. If you could call a 23-year-old influencer with legs for days and morals for sale a girlfriend. He was holding court in the center of the room, laughing too loudly, telling stories to a group of men in $1,000 suits. His mistress, Yila, clung to his side like a trophy, her crimson dress deliberately chosen to stand out. They were a picture of triumph. And Emma, pregnant, alone, and uninvited, was the punchline. She hadn't wanted to come to this gala. It was the annual Weston Foundation fundraiser, the event she used to plan with painstaking care. She knew every detail of its schedule, every donor on the guest list, every sponsor's logo printed on the glossy programs. For years she'd been Andrew's partner, smiling for cameras, working the room, quietly helping him charm investors. Now she was just the ex, and worse, she was the pregnant ex who'd been left behind. Emma could hear the whispers. "That's her? I thought she went back to Pennsylvania already. She looks so tired. I heard he cut her off. Poor thing, pregnant and broke." Every word stabbed at her pride. She clenched her small clutch tighter, telling herself not to cry. She wouldn't give them the satisfaction. Then she heard it. It was Andrew's voice, rising above the noise from near the bar. He had one hand wrapped around Ila's waist, the other gesturing lazily as he spoke to his friends. "She'll beg to come back," he said, smirking. "Mark my words, women like her, they can't survive on their own. She's just a housewife with a belly and no prospects. She'll be crawling back before the baby's even born." The men around him laughed. Ila ran her fingers through his hair like she owned him. Emma's stomach twisted. She felt hot, dizzy. The words landed heavier than she expected, not because they were true, but because they were meant to destroy her. She turned toward the exit. Her pride told her to walk away before tears betrayed her. But just as she reached for the ballroom doors, her clutch buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. "Miss Weston, your jet is ready. Please proceed to the private terminal. Everything you need is waiting." She blinked at the screen. A jet? A private terminal? Surely this was a mistake, or some cruel prank. No one knew she was here. No one except Andrew, and the idea of him arranging this was laughable. He was too busy humiliating her. Emma looked back toward the bar. Andrew was smiling at her now, a smug, victorious smile like he'd already won some invisible war. She turned back to the text, her heartbeat quickened. Who could possibly be sending her a private jet? And why now? She thought about ignoring it, but something, some small spark of defiance, kept her standing there. She typed back, "Who is this?" The reply came instantly. "Your friend. Time to go. You don't belong here." Friend. The only people who'd ever called her that without wanting something in return were hundreds of miles away. And yet, deep in her chest, she felt a strange pull, a whisper that maybe, just maybe, this was the first step away from the hell her life had become. She stepped out into the cold night air. The city lights glowed against the dark winter sky. Her breath came out in quick clouds as she walked toward the valet stand, still clutching her phone like it might vanish. As the valet brought her coat, another text appeared. "Terminal 3. Ask for Captain Sloan. Do not speak to anyone else." Emma frowned. This was insane. Dangerous, even. And yet, the thought of slipping away before Andrew even realized she was gone felt intoxicating. She could almost taste the shock on his face when he found her missing. A sleek black car rolled up to the curb. The driver stepped out, opened the back door, and said quietly, Miss Weston? Emma hesitated. Who sent you? The man only smiled. You'll see soon enough. She glanced back through the glass doors of the ballroom. Andrew was still laughing, still surrounded by people who thought they mattered. Yila's hand was on his chest. He hadn't even noticed she'd left. Her choice was clear. She slid into the car. The door shut with a soft thud, sealing her away from the noise, the gossip, the humiliation. The driver pulled away from the curb, merging into the endless stream of city traffic. As the gala lights faded into the distance, Emma felt her pulse slow. She didn't know where she was going. She didn't know who was behind this. But for the first time in months, she felt something close to hope. The driver didn't speak, and she didn't press. Her phone remained in her lap, that mysterious message still on the screen. She reread it over and over, as if the words might give her answers. 20 minutes later, they turned into a private entrance at the airport. A sleek white jet sat waiting on the tarmac, its polished surface reflecting the runway lights. A tall man in a dark coat stood at the bottom of the stairs, his face hidden in shadow. Emma's breath caught as the car came to a stop. The man stepped forward, his presence commanding even in the dim light. The driver opened her door. Miss Weston, welcome to the next chapter. Emma stepped out, her heels clicking against the cold pavement. The man's face came into view, and her heart skipped. She knew that face. Everyone knew that face. It was one of the most powerful billionaires in the world. And he was here for her. The cold wind swept across the tarmac, stinging Emma Weston's cheeks as she stood before the private jet. Her heart hammered in her chest, but it wasn't from the icy air. It was from the man walking toward her. Miss Weston, he said in a voice deep enough to cut through the night. I'm Adrian Cole. The name hit her like a jolt of electricity. Adrian Cole wasn't just wealthy, he was the billionaire. Real estate tycoon, venture capitalist, philanthropist, the kind of man who could buy a building before lunch and donate it to charity by dinner. He had been on the covers of Forbes, Time, and even gossip magazines for his elusive personal life. And now, he was standing here, on a quiet runway, waiting for her. I believe you've had a difficult night, Adrian continued, his tone low but steady. I think it's time you left New York. Come with me, let's talk on the plane. Emma hesitated. The logical part of her screamed, this is insane. She barely knew him. Actually, she didn't know him at all beyond news articles and fleeting mentions at charity events. But there was something in his gaze, something unshakable that made her feel safer than she had in months. She swallowed hard. Why me? Adrian didn't blink. Because people like Andrew Weston think they can crush people like you, and they're wrong. The words hit a tender place inside her. She stepped forward, climbed the stairs, and entered the cabin. The warmth and soft light inside were a sharp contrast to the night outside. Plush cream leather seats, polished walnut tables, a faint scent of sandalwood. It felt like another world. As she sat down, she realized her hands were trembling. She clasped them together to steady herself. Adrian took the seat across from her. I know what Andrew said tonight, he began. Emma's stomach turned. You were at the gala? I didn't attend, but someone I trust was there. They told me everything, and they told me how you looked, alone, surrounded by sharks who smelled blood. Her chest tightened. She hated that image. Hated how accurate it was. Then you know he's wrong. I won't beg him for anything. A flicker of approval crossed Adrian's face. Good, because I didn't come here to rescue a damsel in distress. I came here to make sure a strong woman gets what she deserves. Emma searched his expression, trying to read his intentions. Why would you care? For a moment, he didn't answer. The engines hummed softly in the background, the jet ready to take off at a moment's notice. Then he leaned forward. Andrew Weston cost me a deal years ago. Dirty tactics, lies. I've been waiting for the right way to deal with him. You might be it. She blinked. I'm not a pawn in some business feud. His gaze softened. You're not, but you are the one person who can walk away from him in a way that will hurt more than any financial loss. He thinks you have nothing. I think you have more power than you realize. Emma shook her head. I don't even have a plan for tomorrow, let alone a way to ruin him. Adrian's lips curved in a faint smile. That's where I come in. She looked away, staring out the oval window at the blinking runway lights. The truth was, She had been drifting for months since the day Andrew told her he needed freedom and suggested she go back to Pennsylvania until after the baby was born. That was his polite way of discarding her. She thought back to how they met. She was 24, fresh out of grad school, working in nonprofit administration. He was 30, already a rising star on Wall Street. Andrew had swept her into a world of gala dinners, weekend getaways, and whispered promises. She thought she was marrying a man who valued loyalty. Instead, she'd married ambition dressed as love. Her family was modest. Her father a retired mechanic, her mother a school librarian. They'd never moved in Andrew's circles, never understood the games of the elite, but they taught her dignity. She'd clung to that even as her marriage crumbled. Now, 6 months pregnant, she was living in a rented apartment on the edge of the city, paying bills from the small savings she'd kept hidden. Andrew had cut her off from their joint accounts. Every week was a careful calculation of groceries, prenatal vitamins, and subway fare. She had told herself she could endure it, that once the baby came she'd find a way forward. But tonight had stripped the last thread of her patience. She turned back to Adrian. "Where exactly is this plane going?" He didn't hesitate. "Dubai." Her brows shot up. "Dubai? I have business there. But more importantly, I have a place where you'll be out of Andrew's reach. Somewhere you can think. Somewhere you can decide who you want to be when you face him again." Emma hesitated. Dubai wasn't just far, it was another world. She had never been outside North America. "And if I say no? Then I'll make sure you get home safe tonight," Adrian said evenly. "And I'll disappear from your life. But I think you're smarter than that. I think you know this is an opportunity." The word opportunity echoed in her head. For months, her life had been shrinking. This was the first thing that felt like expansion. She exhaled slowly. "Why do I feel like getting on this plane changes everything?" Adrian's eyes met hers. "Because it does." The engines roared to life, the vibration running up through the soles of her shoes. A flight attendant appeared with a soft blanket and a bottle of water. Emma's pulse quickened. She thought of Andrew at the gala, laughing with Ela, telling his friends she'd crawl back. She imagined him hearing she had left the country hours later, on a billionaire's jet. The image made her want to smile for the first time in weeks. Adrian's voice broke through her thoughts. "You don't have to decide who you'll be tonight. Just know that when you're ready, you'll have the resources to be whoever you want." Emma tightened her seatbelt as the jet began to move. She didn't know what awaited her in Dubai, but she knew one thing. She would never be the woman Andrew thought she was again. The jet lifted off, the city shrinking beneath them. Emma leaned back, one hand on her belly, the other gripping the armrest. For the first time in a long time, she felt the air was clearing. But she had no idea that the real storm was only just beginning, because someone else in Dubai had been waiting for her arrival. The first thing Emma noticed when she stepped off the jet was the air. It was warm and scented faintly of the sea, even in the early morning hours. The runway lights glowed against the deep indigo sky, and beyond them, the city of Dubai glittered like a mirage made of glass and gold. Adrian Cole walked slightly ahead of her, his tall frame cutting a confident silhouette against the skyline. She followed in silence, still trying to process the fact that she had left New York less than 12 hours ago. A black SUV waited at the edge of the tarmac. The driver opened the door, and Emma slid inside, sinking into the buttery leather seat. As the car pulled away, the city unfolded before her. Sleek skyscrapers, palm-lined boulevards, and flashes of opulence that made Manhattan look modest. Adrian glanced at her. "We'll go straight to the Palm. You'll be staying in my private villa there." Emma had heard of the Palm Jumeirah, an island shaped like a palm tree, lined with luxury villas and five-star hotels. She had never imagined she'd see it in person, let alone stay there. The SUV glided through the quiet streets, crossing a bridge that curved toward the man-made island. Soon the villa came into view, a sprawling white structure with floor-to-ceiling windows, private gardens, and a pool that seemed to spill into the Arabian Gulf. When the gates opened, Emma's breath caught. It was the kind of place she had only seen in magazines. Inside, the villa was a study in understated elegance, marble floors, cream walls, and art that looked like it belonged in a museum. The living room opened onto a terrace with panoramic ocean views. Adrian handed her a key card. "This is your space for as long as you need it. You'll have staff for anything you require, but they'll respect your privacy." Emma set her small overnight bag on the couch. It looked out of place in a room that probably cost more than her old apartment. "Why are you doing this?" she asked finally. Adrian leaned against the doorframe, his expression unreadable. "Because Andrew Weston believes you're powerless. I want to prove him wrong, and maybe prove something to myself." Her brow furrowed. "Prove what?" "That sometimes the right people deserve to win," he said simply. They ate breakfast on the terrace, fresh fruit, pastries, and coffee so smooth it barely needed sugar. The sun rose higher, turning the water a brilliant turquoise. For the first time in months, Emma felt the tightness in her chest ease. But she couldn't shake the question. What came next? Adrian seemed to sense her thoughts. "Rest today. Tomorrow, we start planning." "Planning for what?" He smiled faintly. "Your reinvention." Emma looked down at her hands. Reinvention sounded like something from a self-help book, not real life. "You make it sound easy." "It's not," he said. "But you have an advantage. You're underestimated. People won't see you coming." Her mind flashed to Andrew's smug face at the gala, the way he'd declared she'd begged to come back. The thought of wiping that look off his face was tempting. That afternoon, Emma wandered the villa's gardens. Bougainvillea spilled over the walls, and the sound of waves lapped softly in the distance. She felt her baby kick, a reminder that she wasn't just making decisions for herself anymore. She was still on the terrace when her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown Dubai number. "Welcome to the city, Emma. We've been expecting you." Her stomach tightened. She looked around, half expecting to see someone watching from the street. When she showed Adrian the message, his expression hardened. "Delete it. I'll have it traced." "Who could know I'm here?" she asked. "Fewer people than you think," he said, "which means whoever sent it wanted you to know they're close." That night, Emma couldn't sleep. She lay in the king-sized bed, the sound of the waves mixing with the hum of the villa's air conditioning. Her mind spun with questions. Who had been expecting her? And what did they want? By morning, she decided to push the thought aside, at least until she knew more. She dressed in one of the simple linen dresses provided for her and met Adrian in the study. He gestured to a sleek laptop on the desk. "We're going to start with information. Everything Andrew's been doing for the last 6 months. His deals, his debts, his allies. If we're going to counter him, we need to know the ground." Emma hesitated. "I'm not sure I want to spend my time digging through his dirt." Adrian's gaze was steady. "Then think of it this way. You're learning how to protect yourself. Knowledge isn't just power, it's insurance." She nodded slowly and sat down. For the next few hours, she scrolled through documents, news articles, and whispers from the finance world. Some of it was public record. Some of it clearly wasn't. The more she read, the more she realized Andrew's empire wasn't as solid as he made it look. There were cracks, lawsuits in early stages, risky investments, whispers of regulatory trouble. By midday, she leaned back in the chair. "He's vulnerable." Adrian's lips curved in a half-smile. "Exactly. Now we just need to decide how you want to use that." Emma looked out at the glittering water. Part of her wanted to walk away from it all, to build a quiet life for herself and her child, far from Andrew's shadow. But another part, the part still burning from humiliation, wanted justice. "I don't want to destroy him," she said finally. "I just want him to know he was wrong about me." Adrian nodded. "Then we'll make sure he does." They were interrupted by the arrival of a visitor, a woman in her 30s dressed in tailored cream linen and oversized sunglasses. She walked into the villa like she owned the place, kissed Adrian on both cheeks, and turned to Emma with a warm smile. "You must be Emma. I've been dying to meet you," she said in a lilting accent. "I'm Layla, Adrian's friend." Emma shook her hand, unsure how to place her. Layla's eyes were sharp, assessing. "You've stepped into an interesting story," she said softly. "I hope you're ready for what comes next." Before Emma could respond, Layla turned to Adrian. "They know she's here. We don't have much time." Emma's pulse spiked. "Who's they?" Adrian's expression darkened. "People who want to make sure you never get the chance to prove Andrew wrong." And by nightfall, one of them would make their move. The call came just after sunset. Adrian's phone buzzed on the terrace table, and Emma watched his jaw tighten as he read the screen. He excused himself, stepping into the shadows of the garden. Layla sat across from Emma, swirling her iced tea. "You should know," Layla said quietly. "Andrew Weston isn't just a selfish man. He's dangerous when he feels he's losing control." Emma kept her eyes on the horizon. "I'm not afraid of him." "You should be," Layla replied, her tone sharper now. "He's in Dubai." Emma's head snapped toward her. "That's impossible. He doesn't even know I—" Layla cut her off. "He knows. He arrived this afternoon on a corporate jet, and he's not alone." Emma felt her pulse quicken. "Ela?" Layla gave a humorless smile. "And two men who aren't there for sightseeing. One of them has the kind of face you only see guarding VIPs or collecting debts." Before Emma could respond, Adrian returned. His expression confirmed everything Layla had just said. "They're at the Burj Al Arab," he said. "Top floor suite." Emma's hands gripped the edge of the table. "Why would he come here?" Adrian's eyes met hers. "Because the idea of you disappearing scares him more than you crawling back. He built his ego on the belief that you couldn't live without him. If you prove otherwise, he loses more than pride. He loses influence. And men like Andrew don't let go easily." That night, the villa's usual calm was gone. Adrian doubled security. 2 men at the gates, another on the beachside. Layla stayed close, moving with the restless energy of someone who expected trouble. Emma tried to sleep, but every sound made her heart race. At midnight, she heard voices in the hallway. She slipped from bed, pulling on a robe, and found Adrian standing near the front door, speaking to one of the guards. "They were watching from the shoreline," the guard said. 2 men. One had binoculars. Emma felt a chill run through her. Adrian turned to her. "You're safe, but we need to move fast. If Andrew is here to intimidate you, he won't stop at watching." The next morning, Emma decided she was done hiding in the villa. "I want to see him," she told Adrian. "That's a bad idea," he said flatly. "He came here for a reason. If I keep hiding, I'm letting him control the story." Adrian studied her for a long moment, then finally nodded. "Fine, but we do it my way." By afternoon, Emma found herself standing in the marble lobby of one of Dubai's most exclusive hotels. The air smelled of jasmine and expensive cologne, the floor gleamed like still water, and a grand chandelier glittered overhead. Adrian had arranged a private meeting in one of the lounges. Security flanked the entrance, but Emma felt the tension coil tighter in her chest as the glass doors opened. Andrew Weston was already there, sitting in a leather armchair with a view of the sea. Ela lounged beside him, her red lips curved into a smirk. "Well, well," Andrew drawled as Emma walked in. "Look who decided to come running." Emma didn't flinch. "I'm not running to you. I'm here to tell you to stay away from me." He laughed, a sharp, ugly sound. "You? In Dubai? With Adrian Cole of all people? You think that makes you untouchable?" Adrian stepped forward, his presence a wall between them. "She's not here to think, she's here to live her life. You lost the right to dictate it." Andrew's gaze shifted to Adrian, his smile turning thin. "Funny, I didn't realize you'd developed a taste for charity cases." Emma's nails dug into her palms, but she kept her voice steady. "This isn't charity. It's me refusing to be your punching bag." Ela leaned forward, her tone dripping with mock sweetness. "Oh, Emma, you should be careful. Dubai can be unforgiving, especially to people who make enemies." Adrian's voice cut through like steel. "Consider this your one warning. If you come near her again, you'll regret it." Andrew's expression hardened. "You think you can protect her forever? She's carrying my child. That means she'll always be in my life, whether she likes it or not." Emma's breath caught, but she refused to look away. "No, Andrew, it means I'll protect our child from you, starting now." The silence that followed was heavy, electric. Finally, Andrew stood, adjusting his cufflinks. "We'll see, Emma, we'll see." He walked out, Ela trailing behind him, her smirk never fading. Back in the SUV, Emma stared out the window, the city's glittering towers blurring past. "He's not going to stop," she said quietly. "No," Adrian agreed, "which is why we can't just defend. We have to strike back." That evening, Adrian called a meeting in the villa's study. Layla was there, along with a man Emma didn't recognize, tall, with sharp features and an accent she couldn't place. "This is Karim," Adrian said. "He specializes in difficult problems." Karim inclined his head. "I hear you want to keep someone out of your life. I'm very good at making that happen." Emma shifted uncomfortably. I'm not looking to hurt him. Karim's smile was slow. Sometimes the deepest cuts aren't physical. Adrian slid a folder across the table. We've been gathering information. Andrew's vulnerable in ways he doesn't want the world to know. Emma hesitated, then opened the folder. Inside were documents, financial reports, contracts, photographs, each one a thread in a web she had never seen before. She looked up at Adrian. If we use this, it changes everything. That's the point, he said. She thought of her baby, of the life she wanted to build, one free of fear and manipulation. She thought of Andrew's voice at the gala, telling his friends she'd beg to come back. Emma closed the folder, her decision made. Then let's start. Because if Andrew Weston wanted a war, she was ready to give him one. The next morning, the villa buzzed with quiet urgency. Karim spread documents across the dining table like a general preparing for battle. Layla leaned against the counter, scrolling through her phone, occasionally smirking at whatever message she was sending. Emma sat at the head of the table, coffee untouched, her eyes scanning the papers Adrian had placed before her. These, Adrian said, tapping a set of contracts, are Andrew's Achilles heels. 3 pending deals that look good on paper but are built on shaky financing. If the wrong investors get nervous, Emma caught on quickly. The deals collapse, and Andrew's reputation takes a hit. Not just a hit, Karim said in his smooth, accented voice. A wound that bleeds trust. Once his partners doubt him, they'll abandon him. Emma's stomach twisted, not from doubt, but from the realization of what she was agreeing to. She wasn't just defending herself anymore. She was about to go on the offensive. What's step 1? She asked. Step 1, Adrian said, is information. You're going to reach out to someone Andrew trusts, a contact from his world who has no idea you're here. Emma blinked. And they'll talk to me? Adrian's lips curved faintly. They will if they think you're ready to make a deal of your own. By afternoon, Emma was sitting in a discreet corner of a Dubai cafe, sunglasses shielding her face. Across from her was Malcolm Price, one of Andrew's longtime associates. He was older, silver-haired, with the kind of polished manners that belonged to men who'd spent their lives closing deals over expensive dinners. Emma Weston, he said, shaking his head. I didn't expect to see you. Well, anywhere near Andrew's territory. She smiled politely. I'm not here for Andrew. I'm here because I think we might be able to help each other. Malcolm sipped his espresso, curiosity flickering in his eyes. Go on. Emma slid a single folder across the table. This is a preview of something I'm working on. If it interests you, there's more where that came from. He opened it, scanning the numbers. His brow furrowed. These are projections for the Berm project, Andrew's most guarded development. Emma kept her tone calm. Let's just say I'm not as out of the loop as he thinks, and I know the investors behind this project wouldn't be happy if they knew the real numbers. Malcolm studied her for a long moment. You're playing a dangerous game. Not a game, she said quietly. A correction. When she left the cafe, Adrian was waiting in the SUV. How'd it go? He's hooked, she said. He won't go to Andrew right away. He'll confirm the numbers first, by the time he does. Adrian nodded. The foundation will already be shaking. Back at the villa, Emma allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. She imagined Andrew hearing about the leak, his perfect composure cracking. But the victory was short-lived. That evening, Layla stormed into the living room, tossing her phone onto the couch. We've got a problem. Emma's heart lurched. What happened? Andrew's making his own move, Layla said. He's told half the business community here that you're unstable, that you ran off to Dubai in some kind of breakdown. He's painting you as unfit. Emma's hands tightened into fists. He's trying to discredit me before I can act. Karim appeared in the doorway, expression unreadable. He's also hired someone, not a lawyer, not a PR agent, someone from outside the usual channels. Emma met his eyes. What does that mean? It means he's done playing polite, Karim said. Whatever he's planning, it will feel personal. That night, Emma couldn't shake the unease curling in her gut. She walked the terrace, the sound of the waves failing to calm her. Every shadow seemed sharper, every sound louder. Around midnight, she saw movement at the edge of the property, a figure standing just beyond the pool lights. Her breath caught. Adrian, she called, but when they looked again, the figure was gone. The next morning, Adrian's security team found footprints in the sand leading up to the villa. Whoever had been there had gotten close enough to see inside. Emma sat at the breakfast table, hands wrapped around her coffee cup. "This isn't just about business for him anymore," she said. "He wants to scare me." "Then we make sure he's the one who's scared," Adrian said. "It's time for phase 2. Phase 2 was bolder, riskier. Adrian arranged for an anonymous tip to land in the inbox of a prominent financial journalist in Dubai, a man known for digging deep and publishing without fear. The tip included enough to make Andrew's investors uneasy, but not enough to trace back to Emma or Adrian. 2 days later, the headline hit: Weston Holdings faces questions over Dubai projects. Emma watched the news report from the villa's living room. The journalist stood in front of the gleaming Burham project site, pointing out delays, budget overruns, and rumors of investor withdrawal. By evening, Malcolm Price had called Adrian directly. "Your friend Emma may have started something she can't stop," he said. "Andrew is furious, and he's looking for a way to hit back, hard." Emma hung up the phone, her pulse pounding. "Let him be furious," she said. "He deserves to know what it feels like to be powerless." But even as she said it, she couldn't ignore the nagging thought at the back of her mind. Andrew was unpredictable, and men like him never accepted defeat quietly. That night, as she lay in bed, her phone buzzed. A single message lit up the screen. "Enjoy your view. You won't have it for long." She sat up, heart racing. This wasn't just a business war anymore. It was about to get personal in a way she had never imagined, and the first blow would land sooner than she thought. Emma didn't sleep that night. The message, "Enjoy your view. You won't have it for long," looped in her mind like a haunting refrain. She kept getting up to check the locks, to peer out into the garden, to listen for footsteps on the sand. By sunrise, the tension had twisted itself into a physical knot in her chest. She was pacing the villa's kitchen when Adrian walked in, hair damp from a swim. "You didn't sleep," he said, not a question. She shook her head. "It's different now, Adrian. This isn't just Andrew trying to ruin my reputation. He's telling me he's coming for me." Adrian's expression was grim. "That's why we don't wait for him to act. We stay ahead." But staying ahead became harder within hours. By mid-morning, Layla came storming into the villa, a tablet in her hand. "You need to see this." She tossed it onto the table. A social media post filled the screen, grainy photos of Emma taken through the villa's windows. In one, she was sitting on the terrace with her hand on her belly. In another, she was speaking with Adrian, their heads close together. The caption read, "Runaway wife living the high life with billionaire while her husband waits for their child back home." Emma's stomach turned. "He's painting me as a gold digger," Layla finished. "And he's already got bots pushing the story. It's trending in both New York and Dubai." Kareem appeared in the doorway, holding his phone. "It's worse. Someone's been digging into your past. They've posted your parents' address, pictures of your old apartment in Queens, even your former co-workers' names." Emma's pulse spiked. "He's going after my family?" "That's exactly what he's doing," Kareem said. "He wants you scared and isolated." Emma gripped the edge of the table. She had expected Andrew to smear her name, to threaten her financially, but going after her family crossed a line she hadn't thought he'd dare touch. Adrian placed a hand on her shoulder. "We'll protect them. I'll send security to your parents today." Emma swallowed hard, fighting the heat building behind her eyes. "This isn't about me anymore. He's showing me that if I keep pushing, he'll drag everyone I care about into it." Adrian's voice was steady. "Then we make it so he can't touch you, or them." But Andrew wasn't finished. That afternoon, an email landed in Emma's inbox from an unknown sender. The subject line read, "For the court." Inside was a single PDF. She clicked it open and froze. It was a fabricated psychiatric evaluation claiming she suffered from severe emotional instability and was unfit to provide a safe environment for a child. Emma's voice trembled as she called Adrian over. "He's going to use this to try to take the baby." Adrian's jaw tightened. "This is fake and easily disproven." "Not if he gets it in front of the wrong judge," Emma said. "Andrew knows people. He can make things disappear or appear if it serves him." Layla leaned forward. "Then we expose this before he has the chance, publicly, loudly." But Emma hesitated. The idea of dragging her pregnancy into the spotlight, of letting strangers debate her fitness as a mother. It felt like giving him exactly what he wanted. By evening, the villa felt smaller, the air heavier. Every window seemed like a target, every sound like a threat. Emma sat on the edge of her bed, phone in hand, debating whether to call her parents. She wanted to hear their voices, to feel some sliver of the safety she used to know. But she couldn't bring herself to worry them more. When she finally stepped onto the terrace for air, she froze. There on the beach below was a bouquet of white roses lying on the sand. No card, no vase, just the flowers, perfectly arranged, as if placed deliberately. Emma's chest tightened. Andrew had sent her white roses once, on the day he proposed. She turned to call for Adrian, but the roses were already being carried away by the tide. Whoever had placed them there was gone. An hour later, the security team found tire tracks near the service road behind the villa. No cameras had caught the intruder. Emma's resolve hardened. He's not going to stop until he breaks me. Adrian's voice was quiet but firm. Then don't break. Break him instead. That night, Adrian gathered the team in the study. Kareem laid out a map of Andrew's known movements in Dubai, each location marked with a red pin. He's careful, Kareem said. Always has someone else make the bookings, pays through shell companies, but there's a pattern. He keeps meeting the same man. Local fixer? If we can get leverage on him, we get to Andrew. Emma listened, the ache in her chest now replaced by something colder. Do it, whatever it takes. Layla smiled faintly. There's the Emma we need. But just as they were finalizing the plan, Kareem's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, then at Adrian. You're gonna want to hear this, Kareem said. Andrew's meeting isn't tomorrow, it's tonight, and it's happening 3 blocks from here. Emma's heart kicked up. Then this is our chance. Adrian shook his head. No, it's too risky for you to be anywhere near him right now. Emma met his gaze, her voice steady. I'm done hiding, Adrian. If we're going to end this, I need to face him and show him I'm not afraid. He studied her for a long moment, then finally nodded. Then we do it together. An hour later, they were in an unmarked SUV, the city lights sliding past in a blur. Emma sat between Adrian and Layla, her hands clenched in her lap. She could feel the weight of what was coming, not just another confrontation, but a moment that could tip the entire war in one direction. The SUV slowed, pulling into a quiet street lined with luxury boutiques. Up ahead, through the glass of a high-end cigar lounge, Emma saw him, Andrew, laughing with 2 men, a drink in his hand. Her breath came faster. Adrian leaned closer. Remember, he only has power if you give it to him. Emma nodded once, her eyes locked on the man who had underestimated her for the last time. And when she stepped through that door, she knew nothing between them would ever be the same again. The cigar lounge was dim, its air thick with smoke and expensive cologne. Low jazz hummed in the background, the kind of sound that made conversations feel private. But the moment Emma stepped inside, the temperature in the room seemed to drop. Andrew looked up mid-laugh, his eyes locking on her instantly. The smirk on his face faltered, replaced by something sharper, annoyance laced with disbelief. Well, he said slowly, leaning back in his leather chair. The runaway wife makes a grand entrance. Emma's heart thudded, but her voice stayed even. I'm not running, Andrew. I'm walking right into the place you think you own. His 2 companions exchanged glances, sensing the tension. Adrian took a step forward, his presence looming, but Emma subtly placed a hand on his arm. This was her moment. Andrew gestured toward an empty seat. Sit down. We can have a civilized conversation. I didn't come here to sit, Emma said. I came to make something clear. You can try to smear my name. You can stalk me, send your little warnings, even drag my family into this, but you will never control me again. Andrew chuckled, but the sound was hollow. Control? Emma, I'm protecting what's mine. She met his gaze without blinking. I'm not yours, and neither is this child your possession to use against me. One of his friends shifted uncomfortably, muttering something about needing fresh air. The other followed, leaving them with only Adrian and the low hum of jazz. Andrew leaned forward, his tone turning cold. Do you really think this little stunt with the press will change anything? You don't have the resources to take me down. Emma smiled faintly. You've spent years underestimating me, Andrew. That's your weakness. Adrian reached into his jacket and pulled out a slim envelope. Before you talk about resources, you should see this. Andrew's eyes narrowed as he took it. Inside were copies of documents, emails, contracts, and wire transfers, linking him to a questionable offshore account. "This is nothing," Andrew scoffed, but his knuckles whitened as he gripped the papers. "It's enough to make certain investors think twice," Adrian said, "and enough to make the authorities ask the right questions." Andrew's jaw tightened. "You wouldn't dare." Emma stepped closer, her voice low but clear. "Try me." For a long moment, neither of them moved. The tension stretched so tight Emma could hear her own heartbeat. Then Andrew shoved the envelope back at Adrian and stood. "You're making a mistake," he said. "One that's going to cost you more than you can afford." Emma tilted her head. "You've already taken everything you could from me, Andrew. There's nothing left for you to threaten, except your own reputation." His eyes narrowed, but for the first time, she saw something flicker behind them. Uncertainty. He brushed past them, muttering something under his breath, and disappeared into the night. Emma exhaled slowly, the adrenaline making her hands tremble. Adrian touched her shoulder. "You just won your first round." Outside, the Dubai night was alive with neon lights and the hum of luxury cars gliding past. They climbed into the SUV, the weight of what had just happened settling over them. Back at the villa, Karim was waiting. "I saw him leave in a hurry," he said. "That's good. It means you rattled him." Emma sank into the couch. "I didn't just want to rattle him. I wanted him to know I'm not afraid anymore." Layla smirked. "Trust me, he knows. And now he's going to make mistakes. Men like him always do when their ego takes a hit." For the first time in weeks, Emma felt something like momentum, like she wasn't just reacting, but steering the fight. The next morning brought confirmation. News broke that one of Andrew's Dubai investors had abruptly pulled out of the Burm project, citing irregularities in the financial structure. Emma read the headline over breakfast, a slow smile spreading across her face. "Round one," she murmured. Adrian raised his coffee mug in a toast. To round two. But victory didn't erase the danger. Later that afternoon, Karim received intel that Andrew had been meeting with a local fixer who specialized in making problems disappear. Emma felt her stomach tighten. Disappear how? Karim's expression was unreadable. "Depends on the client's imagination and budget." Adrian leaned forward. "We double security, and we stay on offense. If we let him regroup, he'll come at you harder." Emma nodded, the earlier rush of victory now tempered by the reality that this was far from over. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, she stood on the terrace, watching the water darken to deep blue. She thought of the woman she had been just weeks ago, humiliated, cornered, convinced she had no options. That woman was gone. Adrian joined her, hands in his pockets. "You handled yourself well tonight." She glanced at him. "I didn't want to show fear." "You didn't," he said. "But remember, this isn't just about proving him wrong. It's about building the life you want after this is done." Emma placed a hand over her belly. "That's exactly why I'm fighting." From somewhere far below, she heard laughter from a boat passing in the distance. It was a reminder that life went on, even in the middle of a storm. But she also knew storms had eyes, calm moments before the next wave hit, and she had the unshakable feeling the next wave was already on its way. Because Andrew Weston wasn't leaving Dubai without taking one last shot. 2 days after the showdown in the cigar lounge, the villa seemed quieter than usual. Too quiet. The ocean breeze carried no sense of relief, only the heavy awareness that Andrew was regrouping. Emma was in the study, going through a file of potential witnesses Adrian had gathered, when Karim walked in with a grim look. "We have a problem," he said. Emma straightened. "What kind of problem?" Karim dropped a newspaper on the desk. The front page screamed, "Runaway wife accused of fraud in New York." Emma felt the blood drain from her face. "Fraud?" Adrian appeared behind Karim, his jaw tight. "Andrew's pulled strings in New York. He's filed a formal complaint claiming you siphoned money from his accounts before you left. It's bogus, but it's enough to freeze certain assets and drag your name through more mud." Emma's chest tightened. "He's trying to make me a criminal before I can even defend myself." Karim nodded. "And if he pushes hard enough, he could get a warrant. That means if you step into the wrong jurisdiction." Emma gripped the edge of the desk. "I can't hide forever, and I won't live under his shadow, looking over my shoulder." Adrian's gaze was steady. Then we changed the game entirely. We stopped letting him set the terms. That afternoon, Layla brought in a garment bag and a box, setting them on Emma's bed. If he wants a public fight, give him one. But on your terms, looking like someone he'll never recognize. Inside the bag was a sleek, tailored gown in deep emerald green, the kind of dress that demanded attention without saying a word. In the box was a pair of diamond drop earrings, glittering like they'd been carved from ice. Emma hesitated. This isn't me. Layla smiled knowingly. It's the you he's afraid of, the one who doesn't beg, doesn't hide, and doesn't break. The transformation took hours. By the time she stood in front of the mirror, hair swept into a sophisticated twist, makeup flawless, she barely recognized herself. Her reflection wasn't the woman who had fled a gala in tears. It was someone who could walk into a room and command it. That night, Adrian escorted her into the grand ballroom of Dubai's most exclusive charity gala. Cameras flashed instantly, whispers rippling through the crowd. Emma held her head high, her hand resting lightly on her pregnant belly. Not as a shield, but as a statement. Within minutes, she saw him. Andrew, across the room, mid-conversation with a sheikh. His eyes flicked toward her, and for the first time since she'd known him, he looked off balance. She didn't approach him. She didn't need to. Every photo taken that night would tell the story. She wasn't hiding, she wasn't broken, and she was in the company of one of the most powerful men in the city. Adrian stayed at her side, introducing her to business leaders, philanthropists, and dignitaries. Each handshake, each smile, was another nail in the coffin of Andrew's narrative. But the real blow came later. As the evening wound down, a well-known investigative journalist approached Adrian, and then turned to Emma. "I hear there's more to the fraud story than what's being reported," she said, voice low. "I'd like to hear your side." Emma smiled faintly. "When I'm ready to tell it, you'll be the first to know." The next morning, the internet was flooded with images from the gala. Headlines read, "Emma Weston stuns in Dubai appearance," and "Billionaire Cole and pregnant guest turn heads." Andrew's smear campaign was losing traction. The comments were shifting, from accusations to admiration, from doubt to curiosity about her side of the story. But the win was short-lived. By noon, Karim burst into the villa with news. Andrew's made his move. He's petitioned a Dubai court for an emergency order, claiming you intend to abduct the child by leaving the country without his consent. Emma's blood ran cold. "He's trying to trap me here?" Adrian's voice was calm but firm. "He's trying to force you into a legal corner. If the court grants it, you won't be able to leave Dubai until the matter is resolved." Emma sank into a chair. "So what do we do?" Karim's eyes glinted. "We fight it, with proof that he's unfit to have a say in where this child is raised. That means witnesses, records, and anything that shows his instability." Layla leaned on the doorframe. "And maybe we use the part of the story we've been holding back." Emma looked at her sharply. "What part?" Layla's expression was serious. "The one where Andrew's so-called perfect empire is built on lies, intimidation, and laundering money through shell companies." Adrian nodded. "If we use it, it will end him in business, but it will also make this fight even uglier. Once it's public, there's no going back." Emma's gaze dropped to her hands. She thought of her parents, her unborn child, the life she wanted after this nightmare was over. Finally, she looked up, her voice steady. "Then we don't go back. We finish this." That night, Adrian's team began assembling the file: photos, testimony, bank records. Emma added her own statement, recounting years of manipulation, threats, and the day he cut her off financially while she was pregnant. When it was done, Karim looked at her across the table. "Once this is out, he'll come at you with everything he's got left, but he won't recover." Emma didn't flinch. "Then let him come." As she walked back to her room, the villa quiet around her, she caught her reflection in the glass doors. Emerald dress replaced by simple silk. Makeup washed away, hair loose. But the woman staring back still had the same fire in her eyes. And she knew the next move would decide everything. The morning the story broke, the villa phone lines wouldn't stop ringing. Every screen in the study glowed with the same headline, repeated across outlets in Dubai, New York, and London. Weston Holdings under investigation for money laundering and fraud. Emma stood in the center of the room, barefoot, holding a mug she'd forgotten to drink from. Adrian was on one phone, Kareem on another, both fielding calls from journalists, lawyers, and contacts suddenly eager to distance themselves from Andrew. Layla walked in with a grin. The file landed exactly where it needed to. Multiple sources confirmed it, and the authorities are already freezing his accounts. Emma sank onto the couch, the shock still settling in. So it's real. It's actually happening. Adrian hung up his call and looked at her. It's happening, and it's not just a news cycle. This is a full investigation. He can't spin his way out of this. Kareem covered his receiver, but he's going to try, and that means he'll make mistakes we can use. Within hours, footage emerged of Andrew leaving a meeting at the Burj Al Arab, shoving past reporters who shouted questions about offshore accounts and falsified contracts. His face, once the picture of control, was tight with fury. Emma watched the clip twice. He's unraveling. Exactly what we needed, Adrian said. But Andrew wasn't the type to fade quietly. By afternoon, a statement from his legal team hit the press, denying all allegations and accusing Emma of being a calculated smear campaign fueled by a jealous third party. Layla laughed aloud when she read it. He's blaming you and Adrian for exposing his crimes, which only keeps your names in the headlines. Emma set her mug down. I don't want to be famous for this. I just want to be free. Adrian's voice softened. And you will be. But right now, you have to hold steady. The worst thing you can do is disappear and let him control the narrative again. That night, Emma agreed to her first on-the-record interview. It wasn't with a sensationalist outlet, but with a respected investigative journalist who had been covering corporate corruption for years. They met in a private hotel suite, cameras discreetly set up in the corner. The journalist began gently, asking about her marriage, the early warning signs, the moment she knew she had to leave. Emma spoke plainly, her voice steady despite the knot in her chest. She told the truth about the manipulation, the financial control, the intimidation. She didn't cry. She didn't exaggerate. When the journalist asked if she had anything to say directly to Andrew, she paused before answering. Yes, she said finally. I want you to know you were wrong. I didn't beg to come back. I built a life without you, and now the truth is here for everyone to see. The interview aired the next day. It wasn't just clips or sound bites. It was 20 uninterrupted minutes of her telling her story, supported by documents and testimony. The response was overwhelming. Her inbox filled with messages from strangers thanking her for speaking out, from women who had been in similar situations, from people who had lost everything, to men like Andrew. But with the support came new threats. Anonymous emails, blocked calls. Kareem doubled the security detail, moving guards into the villa full-time. 2 days later, Adrian walked into the study holding his phone. It's over, he said simply. Emma looked up. What do you mean? He's been arrested. Her breath caught. Where? On the tarmac at Dubai International. He was trying to leave the country on a private jet. They picked him up before he could board. Emma set her coffee aside, her hands trembling slightly. So, it's really over? Adrian sat beside her. Legally, there's still a process. But his power, his ability to threaten you, that ends today. Layla came in moments later, scrolling through a fresh batch of headlines. They're calling it one of the fastest takedowns in Dubai corporate history. He's being held without bail while they investigate. Emma let out a long, shaky breath. She hadn't realized until that moment how tightly she'd been holding herself together. That evening, she walked alone on the terrace, the sound of the waves steady and calm for the first time since she'd arrived. The villa lights glowed warm behind her, a sharp contrast to the cold, tense nights she had spent here at the beginning. Adrian joined her, carrying 2 glasses of sparkling water. To the end of one chapter, he said, handing her a glass. She smiled faintly. And the start of another. But deep down, she knew the fight hadn't just been about Andrew. It had been about reclaiming herself, about proving to the world and to herself that she wasn't someone who broke under pressure. The next morning, as sunlight streamed into her room, Emma opened her laptop and began writing a statement. Not to the press, not to lawyers, but to the people who had reached out to her. She thanked them for their support, reminded them that no one should live in fear, and encouraged anyone in a toxic situation to believe in the possibility of freedom. She ended it with one sentence. You're stronger than they want you to believe. She hit send before she could overthink it. By noon, her message was everywhere, shared, quoted, reposted, not as gossip, but as a rallying cry. And for the first time in months, Emma felt like she was standing on solid ground. But she also knew part 10 of her story. The life she would build after all of this was only just beginning. It had been 3 weeks since Andrew's arrest. Dubai's skyline still glittered at night, but for Emma, the city no longer felt like a battleground. The villa was quieter now. No security rushing in with urgent news, no hushed strategy meetings at midnight. Every morning, she would wake to the sound of waves against the shore and sunlight spilling across the balcony. She would touch her belly, feeling the steady rhythm of new life, and remind herself that she'd made it here, through fear, through humiliation, through war, and come out standing. Adrian had insisted she take time for herself. "You've been fighting for months," he told her. "Now you need to live." So she did. She read in the garden, swam in the infinity pool, walked along the beach barefoot. Slowly, her shoulders began to loosen, her breath came easier, and the constant knot in her chest started to dissolve. But even in peace, there was unfinished business. The trial was set to begin in New York, with Dubai's cooperation. Andrew's legal team had already started spinning stories in the press, framing him as a victim of corporate jealousy and a vindictive ex-wife. Emma had a choice: let the court proceedings speak for themselves, or take control of the final chapter. She chose the latter. With Adrian's help, she arranged a press conference at a prestigious Dubai hotel. The ballroom was filled with journalists from around the world, cameras flashing the moment she stepped onto the stage. She wore a cream-colored dress, simple, elegant, and no jewelry except her wedding band from years ago, which she held in her hand. She began quietly, thanking the press for coming, and then she told her story in full. Not the clipped, careful version she'd shared before, but the truth from the beginning. The whirlwind romance, the subtle control, the isolation, the fear. She described the night she left, the pregnancy she faced alone, and the calculated campaign Andrew had launched to destroy her. She didn't cry, but her voice carried the weight of someone who had lived every word. Then she held up the ring. "This," she said, "was supposed to symbolize love. Instead, it became a reminder of everything I survived. Today I return it, not to him, but to the past, because it no longer owns me." She placed the ring on the podium and stepped back. The room erupted in flashes and questions, but she answered only one. "What do you want now, Emma?" She smiled. "A life where my child grows up knowing strength, kindness, and the value of truth. That's all." The footage spread globally within hours. By evening, her face was on every major news outlet, not as the disgraced wife Andrew had tried to paint her as, but as a survivor who had fought back and won. In the days that followed, messages poured in again, more than before. Women shared their own escape stories. Men offered apologies for not seeing the warning signs in their own families. Strangers thanked her for giving them courage. And then one morning, a letter arrived from New York. It was from Andrew's younger sister, a woman Emma had barely known. "Thank you for standing up to him," it read. "You've done what none of us could. Maybe now he'll finally face who he is." Emma folded the letter and tucked it into a drawer, knowing it was something she'd keep forever. Life began to take shape again. Adrian, true to his word, gave her space but remained by her side, never overstepping, never assuming. Layla became more than an ally. She became a friend, the kind who could make Emma laugh even on the days when exhaustion threatened to drag her under. One evening, Adrian invited her to a small rooftop dinner overlooking the city. As the sun dipped behind the skyline, casting the sky in shades of gold and pink, he raised a glass. "To new beginnings," he said. Emma clinked her glass against his. "And to finally breathing again." They talked about the future, where she might want to live once the trial ended, what kind of home she envisioned for her child. For the first time, the conversation wasn't shadowed by what Andrew might do. Weeks later, the verdict came in from New York. Guilty on multiple counts of fraud and money laundering. Andrew was sentenced to prison, his assets seized, his empire dismantled. The news was met with cheers from some, shock from others. For Emma, it was neither. It was simply closure. That night, she stood on the villa's balcony, the warm wind lifting her hair, and whispered a silent goodbye to the fear that had followed her for so long. She knew life wouldn't be perfect. There would be challenges ahead, moments of doubt, days when she'd feel the weight of it all again. But she also knew she had the strength to face it, and the support of people who had proven themselves in the darkest hours. As she turned to go inside, Adrian appeared in the doorway. "Ready?" he asked. "For what?" She smiled. "For whatever comes next." She took his hand. "Yes, more than ready." And with that, they stepped inside, leaving the balcony door open so the sound of the waves could follow them, a reminder that even after the fiercest storm, the tide always returns to calm. Because Emma Weston hadn't just survived, she had reclaimed her life, and this time she would live it on her own terms. So the story has ended. My wonderful friends, are you still here with me right now? If you are, it means something in this journey has touched your heart, even if just a little. And that matters, because what we take from stories isn't just entertainment, it's a mirror. A mirror to see our own courage, our own fears, our own quiet strength that sometimes we forget we have. Emma's fight wasn't only against a man, it was against the shadow of her own doubt. And haven't we all been there? In a place where the world tried to define us, limit us, or tell us we weren't enough? There's a line from an old heterodox saying, "The chains that bind you are only as strong as your belief in them." And I think that's what this story really whispers to us. You are not as trapped as you think. Even in the darkest chapter, you can pick up the pen and start rewriting your own ending. Life will not wait for you to be ready. Storms will come without warning. But like Emma, we have a choice to stay where we're told we belong or to walk into the unknown and build something new. Healing is messy, victory is never instant, and sometimes the scars remain, but they become proof, not of what broke us, but of what we survived. So if you're listening to me now, maybe this is the sign you've been waiting for. Maybe it's time to step forward, even if your voice shakes, even if the ground feels unsteady. Remember, you are stronger than the stories someone else wrote for you. If this story gave you courage, hope, or just a reminder that you are not alone, please like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe so we can keep telling these stories together. Because every time we share, we're not just spreading words, we're passing on strength. And maybe, just maybe, we're helping someone else find their way out of the storm.